Welcome to the Animal Liberation Hour, where we seek insight from animal rights and liberation activists around the world who inspire us to think, reflect, learn, and get active. I'm Michelle, and for this episode, I sat down with Sharon Núñez. Sharon is the co-founder and president of Animal Equality. Before we get into the episode, I want to remind you that the Animal Liberation Hour is a project of animal activism mentorship. AAM is a free multinational program that helps aspiring animal rights activists, as well as those who are already activists but want to take their activism to the next level. From one-on-one mentorship to free workshops and trainings to this podcast, AAM seeks to empower humans to fight for animals so we achieve animal liberation sooner. For more information, visit animalactivismmentorship.com and follow AAM on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. You can keep up with the Animal Liberation Hour on AAM's social media too. So now to our guest, Sharon Núñez, co-founder and director of Animal Equality. Animal Equality is a leading international animal protection organization ranked as one of the most effective animal rights organizations in the world for 3 consecutive years by animal charity evaluators. In this episode, we talk about animal exploitation worldwide, corporate and public outreach strategies, legal advocacy for animals, recent victories, current campaigns, and more. I think you'll enjoy my conversation with Sharon. Hey, Sharon, welcome to the Animal Liberation Hour. I'm really excited to speak with you today.
Hi, it's my absolute pleasure, and hi to anyone who's listening to us.
So you are co-founder and president of Animal Equality, an organization that since 2006 has become a global force for animals. So we're going to talk all about animal equality, but first, just to start, if you would take us back into your beginning a little bit, your personal activist origin story, like who or what influenced you to advocate and fight for animals?
Thank you so much, Michelle. It's always been about the animals for me. So when I was around 21, I learned about animal slaughter, factory farming, and most importantly, I read about a baby calf being separated from her mother a few minutes after she was born. And I immediately knew I hadn't had access to that information before. And I immediately knew that my responsibility was to go vegan. So I went vegan overnight. I'm still like 24 years into it and as healthy as ever. And this was around 2001. And after 6 months, a year being vegan, I understood that my responsibility had to go further, that it wasn't just a matter of me not participating in animal exploitation and animal abuse, that I had the responsibility to be an active part in ending animal cruelty. And that's what I did. I started working for different organizations, and finally in 2006, my co-founders and I started Animal Equality, and we've been going for animals ever since.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness you did, right? Thank goodness you took that next step. And we always, the message is vegan is not quite enough. Let's have everybody get active. But let's talking about the animals, and we always want to put them front and center because it's not about us. It is about them. So let's frame this conversation with the timely urgency that the animals deserve. Why is this moment such a critical time for animals?
That's such a great question. I think there's several reasons, right? I think we can rationally see that animal equality, for example, is focused on factory farming. That's where the majority of animals are suffering and dying. And I myself have been on investigations and have seen mother pigs that can't move for days. I've seen hens that are dead on piles with other hens that are alive. So just the suffering and the magnitude of the suffering, amount of suffering and the magnitude, the amount of individuals that are suffering is just not comparable, in my humble opinion, to any other thing that is happening in the world. I also think it's important to connect with our cause and our mission emotionally. And for me, it's all of those reasons, but it's also the fact that the animals are so innocent. They don't know. They don't know why they're in a farm. They don't know. They can't explain why they can't move. They don't understand why someone is hitting them. They don't understand that. They understand that they're going to be killed, but they only feel fear. So for me, there's just such an intense emotion around that animal emotion and animal sentience, and the recognition that we just have to recognize animal sentience. We're actually working in Mexico to get recognition of the protection for animals in the Constitution. That I think it's a mixture of both. And I think you have to have both. You can have that, of course, the more rational side. For me, it's good to have both. Just that absolute empathy and connection I feel with the mission of saving and helping animals.
Absolutely. Talking about empathy and compassion, they're just words. They're just feelings without the follow-up, without partnering that, pairing that with action. So, talking about that, because obviously you took that feeling and that emotion and you did something with it. You channeled it in a larger way than the average person might, which is to form an organization, to form a nonprofit. That's a big deal. That's a relatively big leap. So let's talk about animal equalities, and structure and nature and beginning. How did you come to form Animal Equality? And what is your mission and vision and core values?
Sure. So Animal Equality was founded in 2006 in Spain by Jose Valle, Javier Moreno, and myself, Sharon Núñez. We'd been working in a few animal protection organizations in Spain and internationally, and really wanted to go deeper into factory farming and, most importantly, do open rescues, which is going into a farm and taking an animal out and doing it in a way that we can show the media, we show our faces, and also undercover investigations. So we set out to do it with no resources. We set out to do it, and that's basically the foundation of Animal Equality, just drive. And that's what keeps us going today. This feeling, this idea that animals are the most important, that we have. I consider myself an activist, a humble activist. I'm no better, no more intelligent, no more anything than your average person. If I can do it, anyone can do it. And I think I have that responsibility. So I also think it's Animal Equality's responsibility and mine to communicate this to people, that, as you very well said, it's not a matter of going vegan, which is very, very important. It's also a matter of understanding, well, how do I want to contribute, or do I want to contribute to ending this? And I think if we look back in history, we would all like to see ourselves like those people who contributed to ending some of the worst abuses in history. Well, this definitely is up there. This is definitely up there. I mean, we're talking about the slaughter of billions of animals every year that have done absolutely nothing. So I think that's what Animal Equality's mission is. Our vision is a world where all animals are respected and protected, and we're guided by compassion and by effectiveness.
Absolutely. So I really commend that. And I'm glad you're framing it in the larger picture of this being a social justice movement, similar to other social justice movements, in that we're trying to right an injustice and fight for an oppressed population, an oppressed group. So let's, look a little bit about how your organization, what makes it unique to some degree is that it is worldwide, it is international. So tell us, I believe you have branches in 8 countries, right? India, Brazil, Spain, Mexico, Italy, Germany, the UK, and the US, if I'm correct. So talk about that a bit, and why is it important that ending factory farming be a global effort, right? Because we stop it in one country and it's still going on in another country, they'll be more importing. I don't know. And so how do you coordinate your efforts with such a large global scale?
Yeah, you got it absolutely right. So we're working in 8 countries: Brazil, Mexico, the United States, 4 European countries: Italy, Spain, the UK, and Germany. And we're also working in India. Now, we've always been an international organization at heart. I'm half Irish, half Spanish. One of the co-founders was born in Germany. We've always been I've worked in London for different organizations. We've always understood the importance of tackling this issue in as a large scale as we could, as was possible for us. So even when we had almost no resources, and I'm literally saying we were basically going to garbage bins to pick up pieces of cardboard to make our posters and try our best, to protest against McDonald's or to protest against, whatever bullfighting or whatever industry we were targeting at the time. We were sending resources to Latin America. So we were sending resources in Spanish. We were creating materials. We were making sure that everything we did was not only downloadable and could be usable in Latin America, but that the activists there that had even less resources than we did had more. So we've always been internationally focused in that sense. And that looking out is what's made Animal Equality an international team. And we're a team of people. We're a team of people who are working in India with an Indian team that is working on the ground, doing undercover investigations with a wonderful executive director, Amruto Bale. We're a team in the UK. We're a team in Spain, a team in Mexico. As I said, actively working to change the constitution. A team that has managed to get the president of Mexico, I think one of the first times in history, to talk about animal protection in her inauguration speech. And we're a team in the US. So we're a global team. We see ourselves as one. And we just really believe, as you've said, that working, in different countries helps us be more effective. So if we're able to do an investigation in the UK, for example, we can release it in Spain, we can release it in Italy, we can release it even in the US. A lot of our investigations get media internationally. And then for our work with corporations, where we basically campaign corporations to get them to end some of the worst cruelties for animals, it also has to be an international effort. So I'll give you an example. We are working now to get to ensure that Aldi is not associating itself with cages for pigs and cages for hens, which I'm sure your audience is familiar with. And this is a campaign that we're running both in the US and in Germany, because Aldi is headquartered in Germany, and it actually does not use cages in Germany, but they're so hypocritical that they do use them in the US. So that would be an example of how we can coordinate internationally to be more effective. And as you said, for animals. This is not about us. This is about a team that gets together and works for animals in the best way they can with the capacities and the resources they have. And that's what we're set out to do.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for mentioning already, one of your current campaigns, which is with Aldi. And maybe, certainly at the end, that's one of our calls to action, and people can certainly here in the United States get more involved, with that, I'm sure. But, as you mentioned, your overall strategy is a multi-pronged approach. So you approach issues by using undercover investigations, as you said, public outreach, and education and corporate outreach and legal advocacy, sort of covering every angle as much as you can. So let's talk about each category a bit more and how they intersect as a comprehensive strategy. You mentioned undercover investigations. So just sort of define that a bit for anybody who, although most of our audience are activists already, but anybody sort of new to this, how do you choose your targets? What does that entail? Any current investigations? I think you're investigating the dairy industry currently. And we want people to know that what you mean is when you investigate, you go inside to get undercover footage inside factory farms and slaughterhouses, which is not easy to do. And they are locked down and they don't want anybody in there. And this is footage they do not want to be seen. So say a little bit about that.
Sure. There is a multitude of strategies, and there's a multitude of strategies and tactics within undercover investigations. There's not much information I can share because we want to make sure that, that our investigators are continue to have access and continue to be safe. That's our priority. And one of the things that I think is most interesting about doing investigations, there's several things. We released a few months ago a shocking investigation into pig farms in Germany that was on national television in Germany. And we're filing for prosecution. We're also going to be taking it to the parliament. We're going to take all of the steps necessary because this is a matter of animal cruelty and also a matter of enforcement. So in this case, this investigation, which is very, very shocking in Europe, very shocking for the German public, on national media, is going to be used as part of a prosecution strategy and as part of a strategy to ensure that the laws that exist in Germany, that is one of the countries in the world that has the strongest animal welfare laws, are enforced. What we've seen in the UK and in Germany, in these countries, is that they're not, that there's very few inspections and that cruelty happens. So we kind of have to do that work, right? That it should be responsibility of different authorities, but we have to do that work. Then investigations are a great way of showing people what happens inside factory farms. A lot of people still don't know. It's really incredible. A lot of people still don't know. I think there's people who don't want to see. I still think there's a lot of people who don't know. And there's a lot of people like you and I who will, and probably all of our listeners, who will decide to go vegan and take action based on factory farm footage because they just see it's wrong. And when you have that, when you see it and you feel that strength in the wrongness of what is going on with animals, you're basically going to go vegan and or try plant-based and become an activist. So, and investigations have that power too of really promoting veganism, plant-based eating, which is something we do with all of our investigations, and activism and creating awareness. And then we have legislative and what I would say corporate strategies. So an example of a legislative strategy that has been hugely successful would be, for example, the ban of male chick killing in Italy. So male chicks are born as part of the egg industry, and because they don't lay eggs and they don't grow big enough to be used for meat, they are automatically discarded. And this is done in a number of cruel ways, from asphyxiating them to grinding them alive, etc. So we started a campaign. We'd been investigating male chick killing as part of the egg industry for almost a decade. And we have a number of campaigns internationally. And in Italy, we managed to collect hundreds of thousands of signatures. We lobbied. We managed to get several politicians to comment on the cruelty of male chick killing. And it all ended in a ban on male chick killing in Italy, which is now being signed into a decree, which is something we're following up on and working on. So that would be an example of a legislative strategy with our investigations. There's also examples of our investigations being shown at the European Parliament, being shown at the Jalisco Congress, that's one of the Mexican states, being shown at different important international organizations. And then there's the corporate strategy. So as well as promoting plant-based eating and trying to get stricter laws for animals and laws that exist enforced, we want companies to end the worst cruelties for the animals that exist now. So, of course, we want a vegan world, but we understand that, and I've been doing this for 24 years, I understand that this is not going to happen overnight, and that there is absolutely outrageous cruelty that can be improved. It's still factory farming, it's still cruel, but it's progress. It is not the same to be in a cage your entire life than to not be in that cage. There's progress there. There's a fundamental difference in how and the well-being of that animal. Again, far from what we want, still an improvement. So we do our investigations when we are kind of taking it from the corporate side, and then show corporations, look, this is what's happening with your suppliers. This cruelty, you're using cages. These are the problems that are associated with cages for mother pigs or for hens. And we campaign and use that investigation to encourage, to inform consumers, basically, who are ultimately the decision makers, and to campaign and inform consumers about the cruelty that is happening associated with that company through the media, through protests, through different our social media, and through different means. So yes, it's kind of, we have different ways that it all comes together in, I would say, reducing suffering, ending factory farming, and also promoting plant-based eating, veganism, / promoting anti-speciesism, this idea that we should not be using animals. And the only reason we do the way we do is because they belong to a species that is different than ours, and that this is unjust, as you mentioned before, and that we should work to question this. And I believe, and I have seen, that every single image that goes out has an impact on someone. It has an impact. Every single footage, every single photo, every single image of an investigation impacts someone. That's why I think it's some of the most important work that Animal Equality and other organizations which we admire and follow do.
Yes, absolutely. So footage is crucial. It's crucial. It's a crucial piece. Without that, progress won't go very far. And so the footage stands alone in terms of raising awareness for people seeing it for the first time, or really being impacted by seeing it over and over. And there's no denying the footage, and you can't unsee it, certainly, but also as a key piece of evidence, and a launching pad for getting laws changed, which is way too rare and takes way too long, but is what it is in terms of laws that have been around, being changed, and then even in the larger perspective, we're also working at chipping away at hearts and minds and trying to change normalization and belief systems and paradigms that are so accepted that they're ubiquitous, they're invisible. The idea of eating animals, that animals are food in the first place. They're not food. They are individuals, unique, bodily autonomy everything should be their right to live their lives that way. And so, and I agree with, improving welfare and reducing suffering in the short term as much as possible, while we still, at the same time, fight for, in the meantime, total animal liberation, abolitionism, emancipation and shutting down factory farms certainly are necessary, in order for that to happen. So, when you approach lawmakers and corporate, both as a both parts of that being important, like, what do you lead with? Like, how do you cold call? I mean, how do you decide? How do you get started? And any other disappointments that you've had? Of course, more disappointments probably than successes, I know. I'm sure there's no general response from a corporation. Like, they don't go, oh, good, yeah, let's sit down and have a conversation. But of course, it's planting seeds and building rapport and building relationships. But, what stands out with you about approaching lawmakers and corporations, huge money-making corporations? How essential is that?
I always say, first and foremost, I'm an optimist. As an activist, you have to be an optimist because you truly believe that people can change. And I truly believe that. I was a meat eater. I hadn't questioned where my food came from. I questioned it, and I started working for animals. So we have to understand that change is happening. If I look back at 20 years ago when I went vegan, and I see the amount of change that has happened for animals over the last 20 years. I mean, if we look in the US, for example, we see some of the laws that have been passed in states that not only ban cages in those states, but in states like California, ban the sale of any product that comes from an animal in a cage. We are talking about historic progress. So that's the most important. Remain optimistic. You have to remain optimistic to be an activist, because that's your responsibility, because you have to believe people can change, laws can change, systems can change. And if I open a history book, I can see that things for many people aren't perfect, for many humans, but they're better than they were, 200 years ago or 300 years ago. I think this is just something that is obvious, and we can do the same for animals. So in terms of what we lead with, it's once you get the media, it's easy to get attention. So we usually will choose based on a company or a legislative initiative based on a number of analysis on what is most probable that can happen. We'll look at the parliamentary makeup to see if passing a ban through Congress, and it usually has to pass through two chambers. So either in the case of Mexico, it's Congress and Senate. In the case of the US, it's the House and Senate. So we will look at what's possible, and then create a strategy in order to achieve that. And I think that I really don't have any disappointments. I wake up every morning and I cannot believe the progress that we've made possible. All of us listening to this podcast, all of us working for animals. And this is just a multiplier. I mean, this is just going to continue happening. Just think about your supermarket 10 years ago, or your grocery store. Just think about how many vegans you knew years ago. Just look at television shows and how many times, or the New York Times had an interview with Peter Singer this weekend. Like, progress is happening. It's slower than we'd want, but it's happening. So I don't have any disappointments. I don't think there's room for that. I think there's room for analysis and growth. And I think there is room for more progress. And that's what we're focused on at Animal Equality. And that's what our message is to activists. Whatever happens that we cannot control is not something we're going to focus on. We're going to focus on the change that we can make now. And we're going to analyze this institution. We're going to analyze this law. We're going to analyze this corporation to understand what is the most effective way in which we can bring about change for animals.
Nice. Well, I love and share your optimistic view, and definitely let's accentuate that as activists, we must remain hopeful and optimistic. Otherwise, we can't manage our burnout, right? Otherwise, we give up, right? So absolutely, we have to wake up in the morning and review our optimism and get on track in that way. And taking care of ourselves is so important, and having support and having community, all of that is important. But I wanted to go back to the media that you mentioned. I don't know, do you have like a tip or two for grassroots groups for engaging the media? I mean, I know you have to have an effective press release, and there has to be a story there. It has to be a compelling story, and you have to be able to communicate that to them for them to pick up a story. But is there anything else? Because I'm sort of in the dark around how exactly you might engage media or up-level the engagement with media.
Yeah, I think I'll give 3 points that might be useful that I would have liked to know when I was starting out and didn't know what I was doing. First is make sure there's a story. So make sure that what is your headline? Like, what are you putting out, and why is it relevant, right? So why is it relevant that you're protesting Denny's? Well, it's relevant because Denny's has been saying that they're going to eliminate cages for mother pigs since 2012, and they've done practically nothing. So how do you turn that into a story that the media will find interesting? Denny's is lying. A protest against Denny's in some very important, city or at their headquarters. And then the thing I really, really, really wish someone had told me, and that I really tried to communicate to the team, starting out, as you know, as an activist, you do everything. You do media, you do posters, you go to protests, you film, is insist. So you count the no's as yes. So every time you get a no, it's like, okay, so that's another one. No, we're not running the story. I'll call again. No, we're not running the story. You just have to continue going. You just have to insist. You literally have to get to a point where journalists tell you, I got it, stop calling me, to say, okay, I have done my journalistic work. That's the most important thing. The most important thing you can do to get in the media is to insist and to work with journalists, to get to know them if you can, but most importantly, that they're saying, I understand this is a story, I can't run it now. Sometimes it's funny, it happened to me, and still happens to a certain extent, where you just feel bad about calling and just insisting, and it's like, yeah, you have to insist, because your responsibility is to make sure that that issue is salient, and in order for that to be so, you just have to put all of your efforts in getting one person to understand why your story is salient.
Yeah, and we don't want people to forget, in this era of social media, which we do have control over, right? And we can put something out there through social media, that also needs to be in tandem with, right? And not ignore and not forget about traditional media outlets, and
Correct.
Utilizing those as well, ultimately both in that way. So I'm sure you being at the head of this sort of international organization, you see the variations or the differences between countries and what works maybe and what doesn't work, what works differently. And I'm sure you've had to tweak and adjust, accordingly. But I'm even thinking in terms of the media is a little bit different based on the country, how they operate, right? So in your mind, what differences, is there more differences or more commonalities that stand out in terms of strategies that work or don't work comparatively between countries? So is there some things that certain countries absolutely do not work in others, and vice versa?
What does not work is not trying. That's the motto.
100%.
So, you have to, regardless of the country you're in. We've managed to get media in India. We've managed to get media in the US, which is particularly hard. We've managed to get media. We get media in Mexico for practically everything that we do there. It's very similar in the UK, where we are coming out with media exposés into fish farming and the salmon industry in Scotland almost every month. So you don't win if you don't try. That's the most important. And that is a continuum throughout. That is the truth throughout the different countries. There's definitely countries where it's going to be more challenging. So I would say it's easier at this time to get media in the UK. It's a smaller country, and there seems to be overall more interest in animal issues than in the US. So to give an example that would be, or would work at this time, would be to ask ourselves, okay, I can maybe get media nationally in the UK. I'll identify who the journalists who are writing about stories are. I'll write to them. I'll try to develop a relationship. It'll be pretty easy because most of them will be based in London, etc. In the US, we have to think differently. It's very, very difficult to get national media in the US. So we have to think about local media and think about media in the States, media in the cities, podcasts like this one that are like creating media, right? That you're actually creating the tools that'll bring about the change. That is fundamental. So it varies. I think that's a simple example. Just in some countries, we're very much focused on that state, local media, like in the case of the US. Generally, this is because of the size of the country. And in other countries, we are like the UK or Italy, where we just had another media expose, which was on national television, also into pig farming. We find it relatively easy to get, with a good story, we find it relatively easy to get national media. So my tip is just do it. It's really like, again, I'm an activist. Anyone can do this. You just have to have the drive. You just have to have that passion. You have that passion, you can achieve whatever you want, or you can try to achieve whatever you want for animals, and you will be absolutely blown away by what is possible.
I love that. Attitude is everything. And that there's no exact formula, certainly. You kind of learn as you go, of course, a little bit of trial and error, but generally don't give up. Be a pest, right? Just be a voice. Use your voice.
That's what animals would want, right? Just think of them. Say, what would a hen in a cage want? What would a baby pig that's just been born and there's going to be 6 months, killed at 6 months when he's still a baby? What would they want? They want our excuses? Would they want our egos? Would they want... No, we don't matter in the sense that what matters is the change that we're able to bring about for these beings that are suffering immensely.
Yeah, so while you're bringing them forward again and we start to envision them in our minds, the animals who we're talking about, who are not here right with us in this moment, but we need to keep them front and center in our minds. It's so important. Let's just take a minute to educate our listeners about the plight of specific animals. I mean, we could talk forever about this, but maybe you could touch on pigs in gestation crates, because I know that's, again, as you said, one of your campaigns to eliminate cages and crates, what that's like for pigs, what that looks like, and maybe could you touch on foie gras and, and what that looks like so people are getting that, that sense, that direct sense of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is knowledge, of course, that we've seen and that you can find online, say industry information many times. And I want to insist that it's something I have eyewitnessed and seen in first person many, many times myself. So to be a pig in this day and age is probably, alongside with being a hen or being a chicken, is probably one of the worst lives you can be born into, especially if you're female. If you're a female pig, you will generally spend, you will be impregnated, and you will spend most of your impregnation, that is 3 months, 3 weeks, and 3 days, in a cage. So you'll just be there. Your abilities, these are socially complex, highly intelligent, incredibly curious. I always say, smell amazing. If you ever gone to a sanctuary, go and smell a pig. They smell amazing. Animals. And they spend their lives in cages. And after that, you will be moved to another cage where you will give birth to your piglets. Some of them you will see them die. You won't be able to help them. You won't be able to access them because of the nature of the structure you're in. You'll probably lie on some of these pigs and hurt them. You literally do not have space to move. In nature, mother pigs, we know, create nests to give birth. And so there's space and there's softness, and the pigs are protected. That doesn't happen in a cold, dark, metallic factory farm. And then your baby piglets, you'll see them being mutilated. So their teeth clipped, their tails cut off, and their testicles ripped out. All of this without anesthesia. A few weeks after that, they'll be taken from you, and the cycle will begin again. And this will be done to you 6, 7, 8 times around in your life, depending on productivity, till someone writes something like spent on your card. And that means that the worst part, if possible, begins. That means the transport to slaughter. And you're exhausted. You've had, hundreds of or dozens of babies, been in a cage your entire life. You're going to be put in a truck where you're going to spend probably several hours without drinking, without food, absolutely exhausted, to be sent to a slaughterhouse where you will know that you are going to be killed. That is the fate of a mother pig and of pigs in general. So when we speak about this, we have to put it into the context of the gravity, right? You talked about justice. I mean, what are we talking about here? We're talking about, like, if this were happening to humans in our country, what would we not do? And there is no morally relevant difference in order to consider an animal and to not consider an animal and to consider a human. They have intelligence, they have sensitivity, they have curiosity, they have families, they care for their families, they're social animals, etc. So the only reason is species. Moving into foie gras, that's probably another terrible life that you can be born into, which is the life of a goose or a duck. You will be in a cage or outside of a cage. We've filmed foie gras farms in Spain, in France, and some of the ducks are outside of cages, some of them are inside. But the most brutal thing that happens to you is that several times a day, a tube will be forced down your throat, and you will be forced to eat an enormous amount of food in order to get your liver diseased. This is very important. I always like to say that animals are rotting flesh, especially when you smell fish. What you're smelling is rotting flesh. The goal of foie gras is to disease someone's liver for someone else to eat it. So when the liver is, big enough, again, this animal is sent to slaughter, killed, and then the product is neatly packaged and sold as a luxurious item. How disgusting. How terrible. How can we allow this? That's the question that we should ask ourselves. How absolutely terrible this is, and how much this should be a priority if we do decide to work for animals, how much they should be a priority in our activism and in our lives.
Yeah, we want people to know that if you feel this is hard to hear, then what you want to consider is that we are the perpetrators. We are the monsters. We are the ones who are doing this. And I like how you're describing it in a way that puts us in their place, that has us be able to replace ourselves and be in their point of view, to really let it sink in and drive home that this is torture, unnecessary torture. Not that there's ever necessary torture, but it's so, so unnecessary. And we definitely encourage people to do your own research. This is public information and standard practice. And so you have a effective form of public outreach, I believe you're still doing, which is the eye animals. Is that right? I hope a 360-degree immersion of factory farming.
Incredible how much you know about us. I'm very honored.
Oh, why look, and absolutely. And the more activism you do, the more connected we are one community. We certainly are. Thank goodness. So tell us about eye animals and what that, describe it so for those who are unfamiliar, and why is it effective? It exposes people to the cruelty, and I think you say people will process it more as a memory because they're seeing it through their eyes and hearing it through their ears, and it's like being there. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So Eye Animal is an immersive experience, a 360 immersive experience, where you put on a set of headsets and some earphones, and you're automatically transported, which is incredible what technology can do, into a gestation crate, into a slaughterhouse, a pig slaughterhouse, or into a chicken farm. And everywhere you look, especially one of the most impactful for me is the gestation crates. Everywhere you look, you can see bars. You look to your right, and you see another pig. You look to your left, you see another mother pig. You look up, you see bars. And you spend a few minutes there. Just imagine, as I was saying before, mother pigs are going to be spending their entire lives there. So what we have found is it to be a very effective resource in order to getting people to become aware of animal abuse and factory farming, and very useful in getting people to think about their habits. We also think that it's very important when we are doing Eye Animal, because one of our core values is effectiveness, is to take it to the places where it'll be most important that it's seen. So this means we've taken it to the Berlin Parliament. We've taken it to the European Parliament. We've taken it to the Mexican Congress. We've taken it to some of the most important universities throughout the world, here in the US, Harvard, Yale, etc. So we want to make sure that this resource is being used and seen by those who will be able to make the most difference for animals. All of us can make difference for animals. But obviously, if you're in Parliament, obviously, if you have the capacity to introduce a bill and you see Eye Animal, and this is exactly what happened in Mexico, and you see Eye Animal, the chances are that your impact is going to be very large. And we also encourage people to do Eye Animal themselves. There's a number of organizations. I think we're working on the equipment at the moment, because this was launched in 2016, and it's 2024. So we're looking into the equipment at the moment. But there's so many here in Austin. One of my friends, Morgan, does Eye Animal with other activists. Basically, if there's a race, if there's an event happening in Austin, there they are with Eye Animal. And yeah, you can reach out to us for more information about that. Just info@animalequality.org or animalequality.org. And we would be happy to help and support you in your Eye Animal journey.
Excellent. I love that. Giving people right away ways to get involved, because I know we'll wrap up in a bit, but I want to ask you just a couple more questions, because there's so much here. It's all so important, and this is so relevant and useful for everyone. So since activists are our general audience here, what do you feel holds folks back from joining in this movement? And how can we encourage folks to get more active? Because we all agree this movement needs numbers. One thing we need is numbers, more effective and engaged activists.
Yeah, what a great question. And one one we deal with ourselves at animal equality daily and constantly is how do we get more people on board, and how do we get the people who are on board to be as engaged as they can possibly be, that is going to be they're going to have capacity for. I don't know if I'm right, but I'm going to give my answer. My answer is focus on the animals, because I think it's important that yes, there is other reasons why factory farming should end, and we recognize those reasons. Animals for me and for animal equality come first, and we need to be a movement, a group of people who has one mission, that is animals, animals, animals. So I have found that speaking with passion and speaking, about the responsibility that we have towards animals, showing the footage, and as you well said, giving people easy ways in, like we do through our Animal Protectors program. Anyone can sign up on our website, animalequality.org. You can send an email, you can sign a petition, you can write to your member of Congress, you can sign an international petition, you can join a protest. I mean, at this time we're doing protests. Last week, we did a week of action against Aldi, and we got hundreds of people involved. So just make it about the issue that is salient. And for me, that issue, my opinion, is animals. We need a number of people who are focused on animals in order to move this movement forward. And positivity, I like like you talked about burnout before. I think the antidote to burnout is mission. Mission, like focus on what has changed. Focus on what you can do now. Forget about what other people are saying. Forget about what other people are doing. Focus on what can I do today that is going to help animals. And if that is your cause, if that is your mission, you will continue working for animals throughout your life, probably. At least that's what I've found. I've worked with some of the same people for the last 20 years, and their mission keeps their strength and their passion untouched. So just sometimes it's about, again, it's not about us. It's about this bigger picture, animals, and thinking about them sometimes can put our situation in perspective. That doesn't mean, of course, we shouldn't take breaks and we shouldn't, as you said, build community. But that's put in perspective what we're talking about here. We're talking about the slaughter millions of animals for no reason other than the fact that we like the taste of their bodies.
Absolutely. So if you're wondering what to do, start with yourself.
Correct.
You put your hand on yourself, point towards yourself. What can I do to become a better activist, to stay engaged, to connect with my why, my reasons in the first place that keep me going, and I think if we all did that, then certainly that's where the motivation, the internal motivation comes from. So that is very, very important. So I know that one thing I want to say, you made a short appearance in Humans and Other Animals. And shout out to Mark DeVries, who I interviewed. I love him. Mark, we love you. And thank you for doing that.
I rented the movie, and I've rented it about 10 times on Amazon just to make sure. I just go in and I watched it. I watched it when it was shown in Dallas. But I just go in, I press rent because I want it to be on Amazon Prime. And I think it's so brilliant. I want as many people as possible to watch it.
Me too. I have done the same thing. I've rented it over and over again. Eventually, it'll probably be included with one of the streaming services.
Just for now, I will be another.
Yeah, I like it. It's a wonderful documentary. He did a screening near here in Philly, and I was there, and Ingrid Newkirk was there, and I saw you there, and I mean, we could talk about what role documentaries play in spreading awareness. We could just say overall that they're crucial. Like, if you want one first step from this point or a call to action right now, everybody can go and watch Humans and Other Animals and all the other documentaries and share those with others is another action people can take. But I don't know if you want to say any more about that or any other ways that we can support animal equality, join in, any other calls to action before we wrap up.
Absolutely. So you're absolutely right. Go watch documentaries on Amazon, Humans and Other Animals. Go watch Cowspiracy. The amount of times I have been on public transport and on a plane or in an Uber on public transport, and I just speak with a person beside me and they talk to me about Cowspiracy is mind-blowing. So the power of these documentaries cannot be understated. We need more people to watch them. We need more done. That's why we also need people renting them like you and I do to make sure that they get watched. In terms of join the movement, if you have the passion, if animals are your mission, just do it. Really, just do it. It doesn't matter if it's animal equality, if it's a local animal group, if it's creating your own group, if it's any other organization, just do it. What would that hen want? What would that mother pig giving birth in a cage want? And in terms of joining animal equality, there are many ways. Everybody can go to our website, that is animalequality.org, and you can become an animal protector. So that means that you will be receiving almost daily emails and different ways you can help animals. You can also sign up for our free plant-based cookbook. You can do that through Animal Equality, and you will be getting recipes and ideas and newsletters on how to start, try, or share your plant-based journey. And of course, all of the work we do requires resources of time, resources of effort, of energy, and resources of money. So you can also become a monthly subscriber to Animal Equality, donating an amount to the organization monthly. And that sustains our campaigns internationally. That sustains Mexico, it sustains the US, it sustains Brazil. So that is equally important. But just, I would say, do it. Like, you can go out there, you can make a difference. You can be the person standing there with a friend, with a banner, speaking to people. You can join a Cube of Truth. There's so many ways that you can help animals. Please do.
Those are wonderful words of hope, a simple message that is wonderful to sort of end on. And thank you for also swinging it to, going vegan and eating a plant-based diet, an animal-free diet, which is part of what we're talking about. And we're saying it's not hard. It's a change, but it is easy. Anything can be veganized. Really, it's not an issue. And it is in the service of animals. It is for them. It is putting them in front of our pleasure, the pleasure we think we get. So any other final words, but we'll wrap up?
I'd say do what you can. I mean, if you don't see yourself going fully vegan, I would want you to go fully vegan, but go vegetarian, eat less meat. What are the steps that you're going to take today that are going to lessen or decrease the amount of animals that are going through these horrific systems? Just do it. Do something. We can all do something. And I want to commend you for this wonderful time together, for how much you know about animal equality. I am very honored and impressed for your activism. And to all listeners, thank you for being there for animals. Here I am, an activist by your side for whatever you need. You can reach me at Sharon N, so that's 2 N's, Sharon with 2 N's, at animalequality.org.
Perfect, Sharon. Beautiful. Thank you for your time. We all need to do our best to end cruelty to farm animals, and animal equality under your inspired and expert leadership is really doing its part. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you all so much for listening. Please rate and review the podcast so others can find us and be inspired by our guests and topics. If you enjoy the Animal Liberation Hour and you would like to support our work in animal activism mentorship, please consider joining our Patreon. Even as little as $2 a month goes a long way in helping us grow the animal rights movement through mentorship. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Animal Activism Mentorship, where you can keep up with the podcast, as well as everything AAM. You can sign up for a free mentor to help you with your activism at animalactivismmentorship.com. If you needed a sign that you should be an activist for the animals, this is it. Remember that it will take all of us to achieve animal liberation. Stay focused, stay positive, be effective, and keep doing your part. Until next time, this is AAM signing off.